Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and thank you for supporting Black American lineage. And today we're going to talk about the hidden history of a real hero. This man's name is Robert Smalls. You may recognize him as one of the first black members of Congress. But Robert Smalls is much more than that. Men like Robert Smalls is one of the reasons why America doesn't want black history taught as it should be taught, because it will dispel the lies that have been told about black people. So let me tell you about Robert Smalls. Robert Smalls was born into slavery on the McKee plantation in Beaufort, South Carolina on April 5th, 1839. His mother, Lydia Polite, was a slave owned by Henry McKee, who may have been Smalls' father. Robert's mother had grown up in the fields, and while he now worked in the house with her, she feared Robert would grow up without knowing the plight of the slaves who were forced to work in the fields on the plantation. She showed him the full horrors of slavery, making him witness the whippings of the field hands, which were a frequent occurrence. After seeing the brutality of slavery, Robert grew defiant and frequently found himself in the Beaufort jail. His mother feared for his safety, so she arranged with McKee to send Robert to Charleston, where he would work as a laborer. At the age of 12, Smalls made $1 a week, with the rest of his wage sent back to his master. So the enslaver never fails to get his cut. And that is what we always have to remember. Slavery was an economic system. It was a system that built up a country, a nation, for a group of people, and they made a living off of another group of people, the enslaved people. So those white people were living off the labor of the enslaved people. We can never forget that. Back to Robert Smalls. Smalls worked many jobs, mostly in and around Charleston Harbor. On December 24, 1856, Robert married Hannah Jones, an enslaved hotel maid. With their owner's permission, they moved in together and had 2 children, Elizabeth and Robert Jr. Smalls saved money and attempted to buy the freedom of his new family, but Hannah's owner demanded $800 for her freedom. Robert knew as long as he and his family were in chains, they could not be sure of a future together, and it would have taken him years to save enough money. Smalls promised his wife they would one day escape from slavery. After the Civil War broke out, Robert was assigned to the Planter, a Confederate military cargo transport. Smalls piloted the Planter around Charleston Harbor, gaining the confidence and trust of the black crew members and the 3 white officers. Knowing the crew trusted him, Smalls devised a plan of escape. One night, when the officers left to sleep ashore, Smalls and the crew took the ship. Smalls piloted the ship out of the harbor and surrendered the Planter and its cargo to the Union Navy. Now we have to stop and let that sink in. This is an enslaved man who learned how to pilot a ship. He had to plan that escape. He had to build trust of those 3 white officers and the 16 black men that worked on the ship too. So he built up the trust of the crew, including the 3 white men, and when he saw the opportunity to escape, he took the opportunity. Because here's the thing, the black people, the enslaved people, did not know who was going to win that war. And they knew that if the South won, they were going to remain enslaved. So he was determined to gain his freedom. So he decided, this is my chance and I'm going to take it. He drove that ship right on out of the Southern Territory and into the waters of the Union Navy and turned that ship over to the Navy. Now, this was a gunboat. This had the ammunition that the Confederates needed to fight that war. So this was a real act of bravery on the part of Robert Smalls. Once he was in the camp of the Union Army, he volunteered his knowledge of Charleston's defenses, leading to the capture of Coles Island a week after his escape. So he not only brought a boat full of ammunition, but he also had knowledge of the Confederates' battle plan. And this is the kind of thing that America doesn't want taught. They don't want it taught that these enslaved people were clever and smart and courageous. They don't want it known that an enslaved person took a Confederate gunboat, delivered it to the Union Navy, and then told the Union Navy what they planned to do, which led to the Union Navy winning an important battle. Impressed with his courage and knowledge, Admiral Samuel Francis DuPont wrote, "Robert is superior to any who have come into our lines, intelligent as many of them have been." He's talking about the enslaved people. He's saying many of them have been intelligent. When the Civil War broke out, the enslaved people who could get to the Union Army ran away, believing they would be safe and free with the Union Army. So this admiral has observed that these enslaved people were intelligent. From Harper's Weekly publication detailing Smalls' exploits, the people of the North celebrated Smalls and his crew. Congress awarded them half of the value of the Planter as prize money. The Planter was the name of the gunship that they stole. Smalls traveled to Washington to meet with President Abraham Lincoln, where he helped to persuade Lincoln to permit black men to serve for the Union Army. Soon after the meeting, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton ordered 5,000 former slaves to fight for the Union. Afterwards, Smalls became the pilot of a Union ship, the USS Crusader, and later captain of the Planter. He became the first black man to be promoted to captain, although he was never a commissioned officer. Getting free work from a black person, trying to make it seem like it's an honor when he needed to be paid like everybody else. In 1897, by an act of Congress, Smalls was granted a pension equal to that of a Navy captain. Well, I would think so. After the war, Smalls returned to his native Beaufort. He bought his former master's home, seized earlier by Union tax authorities. In 1868, he was elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives and later to the South Carolina Senate. In 1874, Smalls was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. As a member of Congress, he fought against the disenfranchisement of black voters across the South. In other words, he fought for their right to vote. Disenfranchisement means that they are still trying to use the law to keep you from voting, and we're still dealing with that to this day. He represented South Carolina's 5th Congressional District from 1875 to 1879 and from 1882 to 1883. Robert Smalls served South Carolina's 7th Congressional District from 1884 to 1887. In the 1890s, he was offered a U.S. Army Colonel's commission in the Spanish-American War and the post of U.S. Minister to Liberia, but he turned down both offers. Robert Smalls died of malaria and diabetes in 1915. He had witnessed slavery, emancipation, the right of African American men to vote, and served in the ranks of the U.S. government. W.E.B. Du Bois said on the history of freedom that the slave went free, stood for a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. Robert Smalls was lucky to live in that moment in the sun. He died as the South worked to recreate slavery through the black codes and Jim Crow laws. That's what Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said about Robert Smalls. Despite this, Smalls refused to engage in pessimism, telling the South Carolina legislature, "My race needs no special defense, for the past history of them in this country proves them to be the equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life." They came out of slavery optimistic. Every generation has thought that we are going to be equal in this generation. But what we fail to realize is that that equality is dependent upon other people being fair-minded and seeing us as being human beings equal to them. And as long as we're dependent upon them to give us equality, we will never get it. Also, we underestimate the dependence that this country had on the enslaved system. That is what got this country going, and that is what has kept this country going for a long time. So for them to relinquish whatever the hold they have over us and then declare us equal, the whole thing will probably fall down. The equality that we so desperately crave has to begin inside of us. Equality in a system of oppression should not even be the goal. The goal is for us to come into our own as the divine creatures that we are, with our own purpose and our own destiny. That is what's going to bring about the liberation that we need, and not trying to be equal to somebody that, may not be so great to be equal with in the first place. Robert Smalls is a bona fide hero, and he is one of those heroes that our young people need to know about, because that was courage and intelligence and determination all rolled into one formerly enslaved man. And there are other accolades. The state of South Carolina celebrates Robert Smalls Day every May 13th. The Robert Smalls House in Beaufort has been designated a National Historic Landmark. A monument and statue are dedicated to his memory, where he is interred at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Beaufort. In 2004, the United States named a ship for Robert Smalls, the USAV Major General Robert Smalls. A statue of Robert Smalls is in the U.S. National Museum of African American History and Culture. There is a proposal to create a statue of Robert Smalls to be installed at the South Carolina State House, and that would be very appropriate. On March 1st, 2023, the Navy renamed USS Chancellorsville to USS Robert Smalls after Smalls, based on a recommendation from the Naming Commission. So there are a lot of accolades in his honor, and they are well deserved. But raise your hand if you've ever heard of him before. We know all about these white generals from the Civil War era, but we never hear about the black ones, and they made a major contribution to the United States military in winning the Civil War. This is a picture of his daughter in 1958, the daughter that he was determined to bring out of slavery. And this is a picture of his descendants. And this is quite a nice looking family. So anyway, thank you for listening. Let me know what you think about the video, and have a great day.